One of the things that I want to upgrade on my table saw while I'm rebuilding it is these zero clearance inserts. Now this one's very old and it's actually broken, and it's time to be able to replace these, and I think I'm going to make several of them. Now I've got two options. One option is to cut it out by hand using the bandsaw and some just basic tools, and the other one is with the CNC machine. Today I think I'm just going to use the bandsaw. Since I can't resaw this material thinner, I'm going to use the joiner to be able to get this down to the proper thickness, and just sand everything when it's done. I have one of the original inserts to this saw that, quite frankly, I have not used for years. And I have a piece of 3/4 inch material that I can use to actually make the insert out of. But what I'm going to do is just simply take this, place it on here, and then take the pencil and trace it around it. Now I've already done that, and it's a very light line, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in so you can see it. I use a very fine point pencil. This is a 0.5 millimeter pencil that I use for the drafting, but I also use it in the woodworking shop as well. And I traced around that to get a very thin line, as accurate as I possibly could. I wanted to make this line just as thin as I possibly could. Now this needs to fit into the table of the table saw pretty snug. I want to be able to have it where I can sand right up to this line and then test fit it and make sure that it fits in. I don't want to sand any more than I absolutely have to. So I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw first, get this roughly cut out, and then I'll take it to the joiner and get the thickness correct. At the miter saw, I want to go ahead and cut the excess material away. That way it'll be much easier to be able to manage cutting out this piece on the bandsaw. The first step I'm going to do is just cut this long straight section, and it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as I don't cut into the line, I'm happy. After that, then I'll work on cutting the radiuses. Again, I want to cut close to the line, but not to the line. And you can actually see I can get very close to the line without touching it, because the closer that I can get to the line while I'm cutting this out, the less sanding is going to be required. If you plan on making one of these table saw inserts, realize that your table saw will use different measurements. The measurements that I use, of course, are for specifically this saw. As you're cutting this out, take your time. There's really no need to rush. And if you're fortunate enough to have a CNC machine, this process will go a whole lot easier. And I'm going to show you how to design that in the next section of the video. I made this rough cut with the bandsaw, and then I darkened this line so that you could see it. So I'll take this and run it through the joiner and bring it right up to the edge of this line. Then I'll sand the rest of it. I have the jointer set so it takes off roughly a 32nd of an inch on each pass. I do this so that I don't have any tear out on the wood. In addition to that, I can actually sneak up on this line very easily by taking these very, very thin cuts. Because if you're too aggressive with this, you're going to end up cutting into that line, and I really don't want to do that. A close inspection reveals that the straight edge is now truly straight. Again, the bandsaw was pretty rough, and you can also see how the joiner took it all the way up right to the edge of that line. The next step is to be able to get this cut down to the 11 millimeters. That's the first thing that's very important, and the second thing is I want to be able to make sure that this is perfectly flat. Any type of warp, twist, or cup in the wood is something that I do not want. So I'm going to run this through the jointer on both sides to make sure that it's totally, completely flat, as well as being the proper thickness. Again, that's going to be 11 millimeters for my saw. Now it's time to take it over to the sander, and I want to be able to sand right up to that pencil line. And before someone asks, yes, because I use the joiner on both sides of this material, the pencil lines are gone, and I had to remark them. But here's a close-up inspection of what I'm talking about, where I have the lines marked, and I want to be able to take my time and sand right up to the edge of that line. At this point, I'm getting really close to having it fit to that final size. So what I want to do is drill a hole. Now this hole is so that I can stick my finger in and pull it back out. Because if I drop this insert in without having a hole like this, well, it could be stuck in there and have to do a little bit of extra work. I want to drill this from both sides to be able to eliminate the tear out. So that way, this finger hole is done. Now I want to take it over to the table saw and start actually doing that final fit. Oh, and by the way, the hole that I drilled was a 3/4 inch diameter hole. Well, you can see the test fit is actually pretty good. Now it's a little bit still too thick because I don't want that proud. Here's one that I had made before and it fits perfectly. I'll take this back over to the joiner and run it through the jointer one more time. At this point, I'm only going to make the one pass. Once that is done, I'll test fit it again, and if I need to make a second pass, I'll do that. Now that is perfect. So when the table saw is all back together, I'll run the blade up through here and I'll give you a nice zero clearance. And this will give me, now this one I made so I can run the dados, and this one I actually made a while back and I ran a small dado through that, and you can see that this one fits perfectly just fine too. So that'll give me two. The old ones get thrown away. Now I want to set this up so that I can cut this out on the CNC machine. And I need to measure this, and I'm going to measure this in the millimeters. So that will be 367 by, and I'll use this one, and that will be 101 millimeters wide. And then we'll put the radius in. And I'll also put this in, and we'll put that at about 28 millimeters by, and we'll come from the end and about 45 millimeters from the end. Now that I have the measurements of the actual table saw insert, I'm going to go into the VCarve Pro and I'm going to design this insert. Now in Easel, I'll set up the exact same file and show you how to design it in Easel. That way it'll give you two options depending on the software that you're using. I also need to know the thickness of this material. And in millimeters again, that's going to be 11.39. That's 10.91, 10.93. And let's just see what this one was. This one is actually smaller, but it also has these little pins right here that you can adjust and get the height exactly. And we're not doing that with these inserts. This one was 11.2. So I'm going to use 11 millimeters. I think that will be a good overall measurement. So 11 millimeters thick. So now I have all three dimensions, the width, the length, and the thickness of the material. So I'm going to grab the computer, we'll design this real quick, and I'll show you how to set that up. I've opened up the VCarve Pro, and we're going to create a new file. This is going to be a single-sided job, and I want this in millimeters. So the width of this is going to be, we'll make it just a little bit larger. So we'll make this 375 millimeters. And as far as the width of this on the y-axis, we'll make this 120 millimeters. That'll give me a little bit of extra room. And as far as the thickness of this, the thickness was going to be 11 millimeters. So that will take care of it. And I think what I'm going to do is we'll go ahead and just use a material surface. I could actually use a machine bed, but we'll leave it as a material surface for right now. We're going to draw this in where the center point is right there. Everything else will be fine. So I'm going to come up here to a rectangle to begin with, and I want to be able to set this up on the x-axis. So that's going to be my length, and that was 367. And on the y-axis, that is going to be the 101. So we'll create that, and we'll close out of it. And I want to make sure that this is centered. So we'll just come up here to the alignment tool. We need to highlight this, of course, and then hit the highlight tool, and now it's centered. And we'll close out of it. The next thing I want to be able to do is put in the hole that goes right up here. Now this hole, all right, we'll come over here to the circle tool, and I need this circle tool where the diameter of this is 19 millimeters. And we'll create that, and we'll close out of it. And that needs to slide right over into this area. I want to be able to position this. Now we're using the center point here, and I wanted this to be about 45 millimeters down from this edge. Well, since we're measuring from here, that actually is going to be about 139 millimeters. So I'm going to bring that right over there with my guideline, put it right here. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. We're measuring off of the center, so I need to bring this up to about 22 millimeters, and that'll put it where I want it to be. Now this is not exact. You can move this anywhere that you want it, but now that I have the two guidelines, I have the snaps on up here, so I can literally take this and just let it snap right into position. And that gives me the hole that I need. And delete the guideline, and we'll delete this guideline also because I really don't need it anymore. But the next thing I need to do is to be able to put this radius. Now this is 101 millimeters in diameter. I could come up here, go back into my rectangle tool. I have this measured here, and I can actually set up the radius right here. So the radius on this would be 50.5 millimeters. And we can apply that, and you can see now that put it in there perfectly. So I can just close it out. And of course I have the radius on both sides of my project. So this is now actually done. There's nothing else that I need to be able to do. The only thing I need to do now is let's move over to the toolpath. And on the toolpath, I'm going to use the profile toolpath, and I'm going to start with the start depth of 0, and then this is going to be cutting down. The thickness of this was 11 millimeters, so if we want to cut all the way through, I'll just put the 11 millimeters. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch end mill, and this is fairly thin. I really can do this in, let's just say, 3 passes. And that is very conservative. I could probably do it in 2 just fine, but we'll just set it up for 3. I want to cut this on the outside. And just to make it easier, I will set up the tabs, and those tabs will be fine. We can edit the tabs. So let's set this up right here, and let's edit tabs. And we can put in 4 tabs. And I think what I'm going to do is drag these tabs over to here. I want to get it off of this curve. So I'll click on it and drag it around, put it right into this area. Same thing, I'm going to move this one over to this area, grab this one, and put it up there. That'll take care of the tabs. And then I'll hit close. So my tabs are taken care of. And now we'll scroll on down. I want to be able to add the ramps because I don't want this just plunging down into the wood. I want to be able to go into this a little bit easier. And the distance, we'll just go down as far as this ramp, 20 millimeters should be plenty. And then from there, we'll be able to save it. I'll just leave it as a profile 1 right now. We'll hit calculate, and you can see what is going to happen. So that actually looks really good. So let's go back now. We'll close this out. We'll set up the 2D. And at this point, I need to get my hole drilled. And we'll do the same thing. We'll use the profile. We'll start at 0, 11 millimeters, 1/4 inch. Same thing, we're going to edit this down to 3 passes, so that'll take care of that. We're going to go on the inside of this. I don't want the hole even bigger. I want it to go on the inside. So that will be taken care of. And we'll come down. I'm not going to worry about the tabs on this, but I am going to put the ramps, and we'll make this just 10 millimeters. We'll scroll down. We'll calculate this, and that takes care of it. Reset the preview now, and we're going to preview all of the tool paths. So now you can see exactly what that will look like, and that will be perfect. That's exactly what we need. All that's left is just to save the tool paths. So now I want to go over to Easel and show you how to set up this same project in Easel. Okay, we're in Easel now, and I'm going to do the same thing. We'll come down here, come down to this bottom tab. I'm going to switch that over to the millimeters, and we will set this project up right up here in this area on the y-axis. We'll set this up at the 375 millimeters, and the length on the y-axis will be the 120 millimeters, and this will be 11 millimeters thick, and that will take care of that. We'll use the front left corner for this. That will be fine. We can work with that just as easy. So that takes care of it. So now I'm going to start the same thing. I'm going to get my rectangle, and I'm going to set up the rectangle. I want to set the size of this on the x-axis at 367, and on the, whoops, that's 267. That'll be 367. And then on the y-axis, that'll be 101 millimeters. So that'll take care of that part. And let's see here. That didn't take. That was 101 millimeters. Okay, so we have that now in place. And the corner radius on the x-axis, we're going to do the same thing. We had set that up at 50.5. And on the y, we'll do the same thing at the 50.5. Really doesn't matter because it's already done. So that is taken care of. So we'll close out of that, and we'll go ahead and center this. Okay, now I'll take this, highlight it again. We're going to come up here to the edit menu, scroll all the way down to where it says center to the material. So now it is all set. The other thing we need to do now is come over here on the cut path, and we need to cut this on a depth of 11 millimeters. So that way it'll cut all the way through. And we want to switch this so that it's going to cut on the outside. So if we look right here, we can click on this, and we want this to cut on the outside. So just like that, we're done. You also notice we have tabs in here. We can do the same thing as we did before. I'll grab that tab, slide it around to there. We'll take this tab, move it over there. Likewise, I'll grab that one, put it there. I can left mouse, hold that down, get that out of the way, and I can move the last one right into there. So that's just like it was before. Now the next thing I need is that 19mm hole. So we'll take the hole and we'll set this up. We'll lock this. We'll set the size at 19mm. That'll take care of it. And as far as the positioning of this, we'll set this up at, now we can work off of the bottom left-hand corner. We can position that right into that point right there. All right, so that hole looks good there. I'm not worried about having a precise location because this really can be just about anywhere that you want it. And then let's set this up so that we can cut this. I do need to cut this all the way through. And I can cut this on the inside. So that will be on the inside, and we do not need the tabs. So right here, we have the use tabs. We'll just click it and turn that off. We don't need the tab for that little hole. And that takes care of our project. It is now done. And you can see what it's going to look like. You can see what it'll look like over here. We can zoom that in some, and that is going to be perfect. And just like that, this project is done. You can see this will take about 30 minutes at the speeds that we have in this one. And I'm curious, what's the default speeds in the VCarve Pro? You can come over here and look at this. And the speeds, actually this is going to take about 5 minutes to cut. So you can see the difference on the default speeds that we have set up. But that can also be changed in the Easel software. So let's go back over. We'll close that. We'll bring up Easel again. And we can come over here to the cut settings. And we have the millimeter speed. See the depth per pass. We can change that and make the depth per pass about 3. And that's going to really cut that down. So we'll make that 3 millimeters. And we'll go ahead and use the ramp. We'll do that. So that'll be taken care of. So now let's get the speed. Now it's down to 10 minutes. So just like that, we cut off 20 minutes of the cut time. Okay, this was a real quick video showing you how to make the table saw inserts. Again, I want to take this table saw and put it back together as close to new as I possibly can. Having these brand new table saw inserts is going to be a big plus also. It'll make cutting the different wood where you eliminate most of that tear out. Now I showed you how to do it manually with minimum tools, and I showed you how to set it up in the VCarve Pro as well as in Easel. So hopefully this video helped you out, and if it did, by all means, give me a thumbs up, subscribe right down there, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. It'll be happening real soon. I've got a number of projects that I'm trying to do while the parts are coming in for the table saw. And it's been a challenge because I use the table saw every day and there's no table saw. So I'm doing some other projects for you that I'll be having out very soon. So I'll see you in the next video. So for now, bye-bye everyone.